Welcome to Advent Bible Study, and today we're going to do a real quick study and take a look at identifying the woman in Revelation 17. Well, when we look at Revelation 17, we see it begins with the word then, and we really have to understand what this word then is if we're going to understand anything in the Bible at all, especially in Revelation. So, what we do is we're going to flip over and we're going to take a look at the Greek word for them. King James translated it the word and it's apparently a primary having a couplet, sometimes also. Okay, where's and I'm going to try to or word group expressing study scriptures. It's written in chapter 18, which means we have to understand. Basically, the Bible has to take these stories as a whole. Can't break up one little part of Revelation and expect to understand anything. So we're going to start here at the introduction of chapter 16. And then I heard a loud voice from the temple telling the seven angels, "Go and pour out on the earth the seven bowls of the wrath of God." So the first angel went and poured his bowl on the earth, and foul and evil sores came upon the men who bore the mark of the beast and worshipped his image. We're going to do another study on this. This mark is incredible, and the Bible explains exactly what it is. And we're going to jump right down to the summation because we can get pretty much the feel of a chapter by reading the introduction and summation. We're not going to study all the details. And there were flashes of lightning, voices, peals of thunder, and a great earthquake such as never been since men were on the earth. So great was that earthquake. The great city was split into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And God remembered Babylon to make her drain the cup of the fury of his wrath. Okay, so Babylon. Did you notice how Babylon is referred to as a woman here? We can just kind of put that in our little notepads here. And every island fled away, and no mountains were to be found. And great hailstones, heavy as 100 weight, dropped on men from heaven, till men cursed God for the plague of the hail. So fearful was that plague. Well, okay, so here's the end of the earth. Then one of the seven angels with the seven bowls. See, now we can understand what's going on. Came to me and said, "Come, and I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who is seated upon the waters." So basically, John just saw the end of the earth. So he just got a quick view of the last seven plagues. And when the last seven plagues finished, the earth is basically destroyed. Simple. Well, John saw, he's looking in the future. He sees a lot of things he doesn't understand. So this angel, the angels understand all these symbols, comes over and starts to explain to John what he just saw. There's a lesson in that. You know, John had to rely upon an angel to explain to him what just happened. John didn't speculate on anything. John had an angel explain. But there's another word here, this judgment. Just five or six different Greek words that were translated judge or judgment in the New Testament. So we got to know exactly which one we're dealing with before we can understand what's going on. So we're going to flip over and we're going to take a look at this word judgment. I'm going to just click on it so we can open up the dictionary, get into a little bit deeper. Okay, this is krima, which comes from 2919. It means a decision, judgment, decision. Okay, but it gets a little deeper. We got to go back to the root word. So we're going to click on 2919 here. This is krino, properly to distinguish. That is to decide. Okay, by implication, to try, condemn, punish. See, this gives us right here and shows us there's three phases to the judgment period in heaven. Just like there's different phases to the court proceeding here on earth. The accused is tried. In other words, they present evidence. And then in God's case, if you're going to face that trial, you're basically condemned. You know, there's two ways you can go about the judgment process in heaven. Number one, you face if you got to face the judgment process, you're basically condemned. There's no way out of it because you haven't claimed the blood of Jesus. So evidence is presented, people are condemned, and then there's a punishment process. Simple. There's a three-step process. So when we go back to what we're taking a look at with this whore or prostitute or whatever you want to call it, basically come and I will show you the three-step process of the great harlot who is seated on many waters. And when we look at this, Revelation 17, 18, and 19 basically deal with the same subject, but these angels are explaining the three different phases of this judgment process. Simple. Once you understand there's three different phases, and there's three explanations, one for each phase, this clears itself up. Okay. With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and with the wine of whose fornication the dwellers on the earth have become drunk. And we don't really want to get into a whole lot of trying to interpret this symbolism here. But here's a little bit of symbolism we should pay attention to. And on her forehead was written a name of mystery, Babylon, the Great, mother of harlots, and of earth's abominations. Okay, this is the first time that this angel explains the symbolism. What is this great harlot? Here we see the word harlot. And down here we see the word harlot, mother of harlots. Babylon, the great mother of harlots. Okay, this identifies the symbol. This woman is Babylon, the city. Plain and simple. Let's go on a little bit further. It's explained right here. Very last verse in chapter 18. And the woman that you saw is the great city which has dominion over the kings of the earth. Well, up here, the woman is identified as Babylon. And if we turn the page, after this I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was made bright with his splendor. And he called out with a mighty voice, Fallen, fallen is Babylon, the great. It has become a dwelling place of demons, a haunt of every foul spirit, and a haunt of every foul and hateful bird. For all the nations have drunk the wine of her impure passion, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. Well, here Babylon is being identified as a woman again, and this is all turning back to proof positive. The woman represents Babylon. So what does that mean? Well, let me go back and explain something a little bit. I've seen probably 1,000 interpretations to what this woman represents, and let me tell you, that nobody's even close. Nobody even comes close. Uh, this beast, which is usually identified as a one world entity or something like that. What this is telling us, and the Bible is leading us, the Bible is actually leading us in a direction we need to study. We have to study Babylon, collect all the information on Babylon in Revelation, and collect all the information on this harlot, and put it all together, and then we can start seeing exactly what this represents. But I've seen those 1,000 studies, and no one seems to agree. Well, a couple of people agree, but there's all this speculation. But here's the strange thing: is typically in those studies they'll go to verse 15 and try to impress you with. And he said to me, the waters that you saw where the harlot is seated are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. Out of those 1,000 studies that I've seen, they all agree that the waters represent people and multitudes and nations and tongues. But no one ever gets to the end of chapter 17 and tells you that the woman is the great city, which is identified as Babylon. Why did he keep that information away from you? That could be an interesting study. But I think we kind of covered the basics on here. And to understand all of this, we have to put all of this information together. And I'm just gonna basically, because I think this point is interesting, when we get into Revelation 18, it gives us a pretty good description, at least one little part of it. And it says the kings of the earth were standing there weeping because of the smoke of her burning. Okay, if we go back to chapter 16, we can see that the earth is destroyed and Babylon is basically split into three parts. So Babylon's all split up. It's pretty much destroyed. And when we get to chapter 18, we see a little bit more of that description. See, the angel is just explaining this process over and over again. And it's the same process. We just put this stuff together, and it's easy to understand. And they're going to stand way off, alas, great Babylon. In 1 hour, your judgment has come. So basically, here we got the word judgment showing us how these stories are actually linked together. It's only judged once, only stands one trial. But remember, there's 3 steps in that process, in the judgment process. So we have to know which one we're at. And the merchants of the earth will weep for her because there's no more gold or silver or jewels or pearls or fine linen. And we get all the way down to the end of this list, and slaves, that is human souls. Well, it has 2 different meanings. On the physical side, it tells us that we're going to see a really upswing in human slavery at the very last days when the earth is destroyed. And the human souls, we know that these entities are going to try to trick and foul up and fool people and pull them into their fake forms of worship and everything else. So not only does it have a physical meaning, but it also has a spiritual meaning. And that's one of the things we're going to discuss as we go on to other studies, is how to move from the physical into the spiritual interpretations on these things. And I hope you tune in. I hope you subscribe. There's going to be a lot of simple study procedures that we're going to go through. Like we just took a look at the concordance, and boy, did I have to fill in some information. And we're also going to take a look at a lot of these things that are going to occur in the last days. And we're going to show you exactly how the Bible points you in the right direction to the right answers at the right time. So I hope you subscribe. I hope you tune in. I hope you enjoyed this one. And don't forget that woman in Babylon are the exact same thing. So if you're going to identify any of these symbols in here for either one, every single description in especially Revelation 17, 18, and 19 has to fit whatever answer you're coming up with or what these prophets are coming up with. Hey, have a great day and hope you enjoyed this little study here.